All right, for the assignment number 8, which is our second assignment for this week, it's called Pen Tool 1, and it's a short bit of pen tool exercises. If you click here, it will download an Illustrator template file that looks, if I zoom out a little bit, like this. So we're going to be focusing on the top 6, and these are basically to get started with the pen tool. We will get more into this tool next week. It's huge. There's a lot that you can do with this. If you look up at the top, it's got a little bit on how this cursor looks when doing different things, and we're going to go over that. Unfortunately, on this video, it will probably be very difficult to see what's going on. There's no way I can zoom into where this cursor is to make it bigger. I can zoom in on where I'm clicking and I can describe it, but all these purple notifications are probably not going to show up in the video very well, so you'll have to look at your own screen to see how they work. So the first thing we're going to do is, because of how I'm drawing this, I'm going to, once I grab my pen tool, which is right here, I'm going to bring the stroke up a couple points so we can see it. And I'm also going to select my fill, and I'm going to get rid of it by clicking the square with the red slash through it. And I'm doing this because as I'm drawing this first one, as soon as I get to here, it's going to fill in there and you won't be able to see where we're going. I'm also going to just change this to a different color so it's something a little more interesting, a little brighter, so it kind of stands out. Actually, no, we're not going to make it purple because the tool tips are purple. That was silly of me. We're going to make it green. Okay, close this. So you'll see that there's a lot of tooltips showing up, and that's because on one of the lower layers, these were already drawn, but also with these little circles, and so there's all these elements are here. Even though they're locked and we can't touch them, we can kind of get some interaction with them. So as you are going through this, you're going to see a lot of these things popping up. But we're going to work on the working layer. And this first section, it's called straight lines, because if all you do is click with the pen tool, you get straight lines. It's a linear curve if we want to use the proper terminology. All right, and I can hit undo until I see not even a dot there, because the first time you click, it's just an anchor point. But if I click carefully, it'll say center. I can go here, and it makes an anchor point, and as soon as I click here, it's going to make another anchor point. And I have this template, which is making it very easy to make a lovely looking star. Normally you will not have something like that, but there's no dragging. It's just click, click, click. Now if you mess up, if you accidentally come out here, whatever, you can hit Control Z, Control Z. You can undo as many steps back as you want, and you can see that blue line. That's where the path is going to be if I click there. If I click here, it'll be there. Now, to close this off, it's hard to see, but when you hover over the first anchor point, the anchor point gets bigger. It says anchor in purple, and there's a little circle next to the cursor. And I think I moved a little. There we go. If you look up here, closing the path. And it's got a little picture with the circle, right? So that's what you're looking for. Now if I go to my move tool for a second, I could, now that I'm done drawing this, fill it in, right? If I wanted to. I don't. But now that it is a closed shape, you can fill it in pretty easily. You can make changes, whatever you want. But that's how you draw straight lines, right? The trick starts to be when you need curved lines. So I'm going to grab the pen tool again. Now these instructions here are click and press here and hold down the shift key at the same time. So I'm going to click, but I'm not going to let go. I click and hold, and I hold down the shift key and I drag to number 2. Now why am I doing that? Well, for one thing, when I let go, you can see that this line, that is that blue line that is going to draw itself, it's curved now. Before, all the lines were straight, but if you click and drag, it brings a handle out, and I'm holding down shift so that that handle is flat, because I want this to be an even circle. If you don't hold down shift, then you're going to get a wibbly wobbly spheroid looking thing. All right, so that will curve the line to about here. but of course I need to bring it here, and you can see it doesn't match. So I go to this next circle and I click and I hold and I drag while holding down shift. And you can see that as I pull that handle, now I get enough of a curve. And I'm going to finish this and then point out some stuff. All right, so we click here, hold down shift, and we drag to there. Click here, hold down shift, and drag to there. And I'm letting go of the mouse before I let go of shift. Because if you let go of shift first and you were like, you know, you can accidentally do that. So you let go of the mouse first, then let go of shift. Now, if I click on this end one, just to click, it closes off the path, but you'll see it's flattened out because I just clicked. When I dragged this Bezier handle out, it only put a curve here on this half, right? Because this half didn't exist yet. When I put this one and I dragged it, it put a handle on both sides because both sides now existed, right? So we have to deal with this. So I'm continuing this again. I'm going to click here and I'm going to drag out to the same location. There we go. And now I've got a completed circle, and if we were to use the direct select tool and hit any of these anchor points, all right, you can see that. Now you can see that the handles are not that big. They don't have to be that big because we have 4 points going around in a not very large circle. The fewer anchor points you have, the larger these handles might be to create this shape. I'm going to hold down the space bar so I can pan around here. Now we have our first unclosed shape. Let's change colors so it's not so boring. There we go. I just realized it's not going to show up on your guys' screens. There we go. Okay. So the way this is working is you can see there's not an anchor point going to be at the tops of these. It's actually at the middle where things are flat. And that means these handles have to be longer because it has to pull this enough that this goes all the way up here, and then this one has to be able to pull it all the way back, basically. So what we're going to do is click and drag while holding shift up to here. And then you'll see there's the curve. And if I was to click here, oh, actually, no, it wouldn't. I click here and I drag, and I'm matching the Bezier handle to that other circle, but I'm also matching the path to where I want it to go. Click and then drag. Click and drag. And I'm holding down shift every time I click and drag. Now, a couple things. One, how do we end this? we don't need to be coming back over here, right? It's just a sine curve. You hit escape. You could potentially just go to another tool and then go back to the pen tool, but that's not very elegant. That's not very good. That's not best practices, right? So you hit escape, you can stay in the pen tool, and just basic curves. Now we start to get into something a little bit more complex, because what's going to happen is we are going to have a handle, a curve, a curved curve, Bezier curve, coming out of this point. But it's going to be a linear curve going into this point, right? So this right here is going to be curved, and this is going to be linear. But then this is going to be curved coming out of here again. So basically, it's rather than even handles, there we go, on each side, what we're going to have is a handle on one side, but a linear curve on the other. So how do we do that? Like, how do we click to make that happen? Because there's things you can click up here with the direct select tool to make that happen, but we also want to know how to create this in the first place. So, oh, that is an odd look for my pen tool. I don't know where my pen tool went. That's unfortunate. Well, hopefully it works the same. So I'm going to click and drag same as before, all the way to here. And then you'll see here that if you were to just click once, that's actually what it looks like. I just click, it looks correct. Now, fun fact, I can click on the same anchor point and drag to create a handle for what's going forward. That's what you're doing. We click once and let go to correct a linear anchor point going in to this anchor point. And then I'm going to click and drag to add a handle for the curve that's coming out of the anchor point. And then I click here again to get it linear. And now there's step 8 here that says click and drag and release here. Now, why would we do that? Well, what if we want to add to this? It kind of helps to make things complete, make them the same. The next one could be the same if I need it to be. I don't want it to be. I'm going to hit escape. But there's simply, it's kind of like, I don't know, completing the circle basically, right? So, but again, it's click and drag to get a curve here, click and release to get a linear curve there, but click and drag on the same anchor point. So you can click on the same anchor point multiple times to get different things coming in and out of the anchor point. Okay. Which is, okay. This one, change to, oh no, we don't want blue. This one is a little bit trickier because we're going to be moving the handles after we draw them. We know how to do this with our direct select tool, but now we're going to do it with the pen tool. So as usual, we click and drag to there. And then we click and drag to there. And we let go, right? So nice little half moon curve. Now, we're going to hold down Alt. And we see how our cursor changes. That is how your cursor is going to look. Even if you have the pen tool just looking thing to start with, it's going to turn to that. And you're going to have to pay close attention and hover over the end of this handle. And the word in purple should say handle. If it doesn't, this won't work. When it says handle, you click and drag while holding down Alt. And you can see I can bring this up to where that other handle is. And now it's going to curve in the same direction. I click and I drag, right? I'm breaking the tangent. I let go, it makes the curve. I hold down Alt and I click where it says handle and I drag this up to the other one. And so on and so forth. I should point out that the way this is drawn, you can see how the anchor point or the handles don't quite line up with the drawing. If you make them straight up and down, that's okay. It's still, the drawing itself is going to look fine. Hold down Alt, hover over the handle, drag this up here to break the tangent, and then I click here, and I hold Shift, like this, and then I'm going to click here just to end it because I want to show you what it is that we're doing. Because this, if I get my direct select tool, is what usually happens. I click here and I zoom in and you can see these handles are connected, right? Whereas this one is not. This one goes here, this one goes here. The two do not talk to each other. Now, if you've already drawn something and you want to break the tangent, you hold down Alt with your direct select tool and you can break the tangent. This one doesn't have a Bezier handle. I could add it by clicking up here, convert to this, and then drag this up here. Got my little tooltips telling me when I'm up at the top, and there you go. It doesn't look the same because it's not equidistant. I would have to fix that, which would be a lot of eyeball work, but there you go. So that's what we're doing. We're using the direct select tool to break the tangents rather than, we're using the pen tool to break the tangents rather than the direct select tool, which is what we usually use. This one is another one of click on the thing multiple times. We're going back and forth between a curved line and a straight line, which means all of these interior ones you're going to click on twice. And sometimes you're going to click and drag and then just click, and other times you're going to just click and then click and drag. Right? So first up, we click and drag in order to get a curve. And then we click and drag here in order to get a curve. But now if I want a straight line coming out of here, I have to click on that anchor point again, and then click on that anchor point again. I'm holding down shift to get a straight line, because if I hold down shift, see how it constrains proportions to 45 degrees? Right. But I clicked on this, but now I have to click and drag in order to get a curve coming out of here. Click and drag to get a curve going into that anchor point. Click on the same anchor point and release to get a linear curve. Click and release there to get it linear. Click and drag to get a Bezier. Click and drag to get a Bezier. All right, and then we hit escape. So you click on these twice, once to get a Bezier curve, once to get a linear curve, and then you reverse the process on the right-hand side where you click once to get a linear curve, and then you click and drag to get a Bezier curve coming out of that. All right, and then when we were in class, I had everyone try this one here as sort of, when you zoom in, it zooms into whatever you have selected. So I'm having everyone, apologies, give this one a shot, kind of on your own. It's tricky. It's not. We're gonna get a second crack at it next week, but it's a lot of click and drag here. There's actually 2 different places along some of these lines, depending on which step you're in that you click and drag and release to. But it's basically getting a really thin swoosh. And if you're looking at it, you might be like, oh, that's kind of like a stroke. I could get that with a stroke, but like you can't, because you can't control the outside very easily. All right, so that is pen tool exercise 1. Try this one on your own. You should have all of them tried, but this one we just don't have instructions.